the revised warn notice, the closure date, I imagine that was a great relief to have a concrete date instead of what's happening.
Well, it was good to have that. I don't know if that was a relief. We certainly feel for the employees there and what's happened with their pensions, and we're continuing to try to work with that.
Well, considering the unaltered date was June 13th,
right,
and they changed that date 3 days before then, probably a relief that it was August 10th and not June 13th.
Well, yeah, and it gives some finality to it, and the emphasis that we have to make a change on the south side of town for the better, and that's what we're looking to do.
A delayed change, a much needed change.
A much needed change, yeah.
Now, I have been doing my best, giving myself a crash course on the history of the paper mill and the various facilities and how it developed in this, from one barn-like building in 1847 to this huge, massive complex, multi-million-dollar value. And often when this kind of topic is talked about, people think of one factory building. But this is a huge complex with multiple factory buildings of a little more than 100 years, varying ages. 1960, I think, is some of the oldest surviving buildings. And that would take a huge amount of time, I would think, to sift through that and demolish what you want and clear out this and build new. Can you say what kind of time frame we're looking at after August 10th?
Well, there's two parts to that. There's the remediation of the property. They've been dumping chemicals into the ground for 200 years. And we don't know the extent of that. We don't know the contents of that. Core sampling will tell us. And it'll tell us how far down we're going to have to scrape off and return fresh pavement or fresh dirt to the surface.
And Pixel has agreed?
They've agreed to pay for that, which is a tremendous load off us as a community.
Now, is the environmental, is that there are several main areas of the plan?
That's all there is in the plan.
Okay.
That's ground sampling. They have acres and acres of former dump site that's still owned by Midwest-Vaco on the west side of 772. This side, the north side of Paint Creek.
Yeah, so behind Bellevue Hill.
That goes all the way back to practically to Bellevue.
Yeah, it's sort of back behind Junction Park.
Right.
And I guess no one wanted to buy that off Midwest-Vaco, so even though Midwest-Vaco is gone, it's still owned by it.
It doesn't make, the company, like governments, the county doesn't want to own property. And most companies don't want to own landlocked, dormant property. Yeah. It's no return on that investment. So we think we would have some good negotiation with that and decide what future that holds too. But when you talk about, getting back to your original question about the demolition and the replacement, how long that's
before we go there, the
okay.
dump it's been capped, it's been cleaned up, it's a big pasture at the moment?
As far as we know. I can't answer that for sure, because I haven't seen the paperwork on that. But that's one of the things we're looking at. We're going to make sure that all the ground is, now HIG has no responsibility for that because they never owned it.
Yeah.
So we have to go back and follow all the rabbit trails and tie up the loose ends on that.
Now, as for the plant, you've got an area that's mostly the buildings, and then you've got the
wood yard.
The chip yard, wood yard. You've got the where the bleach plant is, the coal plant. I would expect that would have the most potential contaminants. Mm-hmm. You're not going to find much under a building built in 1930. But this is all would have to be explored.
Right, and there's a water treatment plant facility on that property too, and it was a self-sustaining operation. And the pros to that are you don't have to rely on anybody or a community to service that, but by the same token, you have all that responsibility and expense, and now the expense of that cleanup. So that's what they're holding with now. That's what they wrestle with.
And this would be required with a change of ownership or new laws?
No, this is an agreement between Jobs Ohio and HIG.
But if you're not tearing down a 1930 factory building, do you need to find out what's underneath it to remediate it?
Well, demolition's their responsibility too.
If they choose to demolish, then they would
Right.
have to look what's underneath what they're exposing.
Yeah, like I said, the paper mill is laid out to process carbonless paper. There's some other products that could slide into that footprint and be efficient. But general manufacturing shifts, you put an automotive plant there, you put a data center there, the buildings are practically worthless. Now, the shipping dock, we talked about keeping that on 8th Street. And if you're going to redesign the whole area, I would get that out of immediate, relation to housing, a neighborhood. I'd want to get the plant away from the neighborhood and have green space in between the neighborhood and the plant, and just make that a little more beautiful down there. And that's the terms that we're talking about. But we have to wait for what kind of company is going to come in and what their requirements are for a footprint, for a layout, for a production flow, before we just start deciding what goes where. And to do that most effectively, we need to have a clean slate.
Do you know how long cleaning that slate would take?
Well, the remediation estimate's been between 6 and 24 months.
As little as 6
getting
months?
the Pixel workers back to work in a paper mill, that is a potential. But that is kicking the can down the road even farther. I know that there's a lot of area employers that would gladly take their skill, loyalty, craftsmanship, work ethic. The workers from the paper mill come highly qualified and containing a lot of the soft skills that are lacking to HR managers trying to hire people today.
I believe Mike Throne said there are 450 jobs within a 45-mile radius that are open.
Yes.
That want to hire.
And that changes every week too. So finding new people is rare. So they're going to be the benefactors of this for a while. And then whatever kind of plant goes in there, what skill level is required there. We're talking closely to Pickaway Ross. We're talking with changing maybe some of the educational aspects of K through 12, branch classes is to align with any future-looking technology and skill set that goes into the employment sector. We have a real nice momentum right now with Ross County schools starting to understand that the hiring companies are a customer of them, and what they are looking for in the students that graduate out of the school systems and come to work at those companies could be improved, and they could play a role in that. So there's a new level of understanding with the educational institutions that we can do better, and we can prepare people for the jobs that become available around here and retain our populace and not have the young people move off to the 3 Cs to get a good job. Most of them because they're not even aware of what we have around here. Every company has a professional slots or a series of slots in them that people can go to work in an office and do paperwork and administrative work that they'd be doing in Columbus. They can do it right here without the commute. So, we're looking at this with solving several aspects of what is less than what we would like to see in the area today. We're looking at multiple impacts and multiple effects in the creation of whatever goes down on the south side of town, and how that would change culturally and operationally the effectiveness of the workforce that we produce here.
Okay, so very far-reaching, far-thinking.
This is strategic.
So this crisis has caused some.
Well, we've known that we had to do this. Our last comprehensive plan for county development was done in 1978 or 79. And, it's time for an update.
That's the year after Star Wars came out.
That shows you how
the
old
original,
it is.
the real Star Wars.
Yeah. So having build up our planning development department and doing a comprehensive plan for county development along 8 characteristics, and we can do a whole nother session on that. But Devin Shoemaker is a blessing for this community. His talents and skills were not utilized to their full effectiveness. and we've built out his department. We've added teammates there that are high-quality people, and we can tackle these strategic projects and get good answers and good direction to create a vision for the county. And that's nothing we're going to push down people's throats. It's our responsibility, I think, to come up with these kind of ideas. And what would you like to see us look like in 10 or 20 years? And that's how long it's going to take to roll this out. This isn't something that happens tomorrow. It's a vision. But I think that we need something to work toward and something to aspire to as a community to get us to our full potential. Because we have a lot to offer. We're from Franklin County, which is probably one of the fastest growing communities in the United States.
Ask all the neighboring counties.
Exactly.
Keep spreading out.
You know, and we have a lot of commuters that work in Columbus, and we have certainly 50,000 pass-through automobiles every day in Ross County, going up 35, 50, and 23. So do we want to have those people that work in Columbus move here? Do we want to have people from Columbus move down here? You know, that's why we're dumping a lot of effort into the sheriff's department and the jail and trying to make this as safe as we can, as low cost of living as we can, and just have this be a quality of life kind of destination for people to come move to and be proud of their community. We certainly have the history down. So let's add to that. There's more work to do.
Okay.